it may have made people watching at home think, wait a second, is it possible that when Donald Trump leaves office that charges could be brought again, or there could be another round of accountability? Can you just refresh our memories on that and tell people, all of us and people watching at home, what is or isn't possible?
All right. Well, remember, Jen, nothing is more important to the Republicans than the absolute untouchability, immunity, and impunity of Donald Trump. OK, that's number one. When we moved just to impeach him and try and convict him and remove him from office and disqualify him from office. And indeed, it was a 57-43 vote, the most sweeping bipartisan vote to impeach and to try and convict a president in American history. A lot of the Republicans were saying, well, if there were really crimes there, try him. Let the Department of Justice do it if there were really crimes. Then, of course, when he escaped by the skin of his teeth, being impeached and tried, removed, convicted, disqualified, then and a special counsel was appointed, then they threw everything into trying to wrap him in doctrines of presidential immunity. And of course, the Roberts Court pulled out of a hat completely the idea that the president cannot be prosecuted for felony crimes he commits if they are somehow under the auspices of the core functions of the presidency. I mean, just a completely magical doctrine, like the stork brought it out of nowhere. So Hank Johnson asked an excellent question, which is, all right, it was dismissed without prejudice, which means it could still be alive in the future. Of course, you've got to deal with all the statute of limitations questions. But then you also have to deal with all of these radical, novel Supreme Court immunity doctrines that have been generated. So nothing's impossible here. But look, I think that Americans understand the core thing right now is for the forces of democracy and freedom to stay together, to get us through this nightmare, and to make sure that American democracy survives. That's the critical thing. And we can, let the prosecutors deal with the prosecutor questions in the future. Let's focus on defending and preserving and strengthening our democracy.
Congressman Raskin, as Nicole Wallace, in that spirit, if Democrats are in control of the House, which seems like something even Donald Trump is girding himself for, would you invite Jack Smith back a year from now and ask him to detail the evidence he gathered and how Donald Trump sought to overturn the 2020 election ahead of the 2028 presidential election?
Well, as we were saying before, Nicole, we need to get him to come back to testify on volume 2 of his report, because that will also demonstrate an extraordinary sequence of obstructive events where Donald Trump did everything in his power to literally physically hide evidence, to steal classified documents, and then to use them in utterly improper ways in the well-trafficked Mar-a-Lago hotel with all of these international visitors and Russians running around and everything. We got to get to the bottom of that. And we're not waiting until the 2026 or 2028 elections. We want to do that one now.
Hey, Congressman Ari here. The Republicans on the panel also tried to get Jack Smith to sort of give a report card to the prior congressional Jan 6 probe, which was a little odd. And one of their points seemed to be, well, some of the witnesses used secondhand information, things that not only they saw, but things they heard from other people, their colleagues. Cassie Hutchinson was named, for example. And I just wanted to ask you, what does it say about the Republican members of your committee that during that entire investigation, they backed up the White House position that they weren't going to cooperate, that firsthand witnesses weren't going to cooperate even to a criminal degree? Navarro and Bannon famously going to prison rather than talking to the committee. And now they're saying out loud they don't want secondhand witnesses. So their plan seems to be no witnesses. And what does that tell us about their view of what would happen if witnesses actually told the truth about how Trump tried to steal the election?
Yeah, I mean, it was an imbecilic line of inquiry. First of all, Cassidy Hutchinson worked for Donald Trump. She was a Trump witness. She was the top assistant to Mark Meadows, something that they never mentioned.
You can focus on Fani Willis and the way she ran her investigation. in Georgia with all of the problems that she had. But John Heilemann, the problem with going after Jack Smith is that even Donald Trump has admitted privately, you know, if they'd only come after me with one case, one or two, I would have been in trouble. The best thing that ever happened to me was they came after me like 4, 5, 6 cases, and it was just overwhelming to the American people. So I guess my question is, why in the world would Republicans want to bring up the 1 or 2 cases that even the president admits he could have been convicted on if they had focused on that? And why it's so stupid for the Republicans to give Jack Smith free time to explain, no, this wasn't me. The grand juries in 2 different places said that the president needed to be indicted. The witnesses against the president were all of his former Republican workers, Republican staff members, workers at Mar-a-Lago. I mean, again, as John Lemire says, this makes no political sense. If you're Donald Trump, if you're the Republicans, let Jack Smith go, because you're going to lose that. You may be able to win fights against less seasoned, less competent prosecutors. You're going to lose that fight against Jack Smith every time. You just are politically.
You know, I think, Joe, that there are a few things going on here. I mean, one is the thing Lemire said a second ago about how, you know, the Congress has shown over and over again that if Donald Trump wants something to happen, they are going to comply. So that's the first. The starting point is no one. If this is what Trump wants, and we can spend some time talking about what the politics of this are for Donald Trump, as we are right now, you're not going to win the fight. It's not going to help Donald Trump in any way. I'm not totally convinced it's going to hurt Donald Trump in any way, because I do think that a lot of public opinion is pretty baked in about this issue, which is we're going back and relitigating a thing that now happened, 5 years ago and 4 years ago, I guess, January of 2021, 4 or 5 years ago. Fully 5 years ago, and we've had a lot of discussion over January 6th and Donald Trump's role in it. Does it hurt the president appreciably compared to everything else that's going on? I don't think that much. Does it help him? It doesn't help him at all. But the Republican Congress people do what Donald Trump wants. Now, I think the other thing here is that we all have been talking about how we watch the totality of this, and you give Jack Smith a platform to make the statements he's going to make, et cetera, et cetera. If you're a Republican congressman, you're not thinking about the totality of the effect. You're not thinking about, you're kind of put in this awkward position where you have to do what Donald Trump wants. All you're thinking about is the media environment that now exists, in which no one is watching the totality of this. And you are looking for, can I get a piece of social media content that will feed my base? If I can get up and grandstand and I can make some point, and Jack Smith is not going to get theatrical. He's not going to push back. He's not going to fight back. He's going to sort of sit there and take it because he doesn't want to rise, I should say, stoop to the level of a lot of these Republican congresspeople. What do they want? They want 30 seconds of video they can put out on TikTok or put out on Instagram or put out on one of the more right-wing social media channels. And they think that will help them with fundraising, that will help them with their base. And the difference in our world now is the difference between people who absorb the totality of these things, who watch and say, well, what on balance has been the good or bad that's been done politically, versus a lot of Republican and Democratic in their way members on Capitol Hill who are mostly focused on what's the 30 seconds or 45 seconds worth of content I can get out of this that will maybe move the needle in terms of, as I said before, fundraising and stoking the base. And from that, I think some of these Republicans yesterday will think it went fine.
Well, the problem is there, Willie, if I'm running against one of these guys, I got your 30 seconds for you. I got you yelling at protesters or helping the cops try to keep people out. I got you whining or running or looking scared to death, then split with you claiming it's a hoax 5 years later. And, of course, there were some extraordinarily pathetic moments yesterday where you had just that, where you had members of Congress yelling at protesters who, and helping Capitol Hill cops barricade doors, turn around and then attack Capitol Hill cops. I mean, how sad and pathetic that the very people that helped save their lives on January the 6th from a mob, those same people now, to try to save, be able to wear a congressional pin, which is really about as sad and pathetic as it gets, They're now stabbing those Capitol Hill cops in the back and attacking them and blaming them, despite the fact they saved their lives that day.
Yeah, and remember, this is all in the context of many of these members in the administration criticizing protesters, most of them peaceful in places like Minneapolis, for protesting against police officers there. And yet
Trump just took a major legal loss. He clearly believed he could intimidate people into silence, especially Jack Smith, and use the courts to shut down his critics. But that plan isn't working. The U.S. Supreme Court has not backed his attempt to weaken the First Amendment or block people from speaking publicly about him. At least for now, the court isn't giving Trump what he wants, the power to silence his political enemies. Because of that, people are still free to speak out and call Trump what he is, a convicted felon. That isn't opinion or speculation. He has actually been convicted in court on dozens of felony counts. In the Jack Smith cases specifically, he hasn't been convicted, but he is still a convicted felon overall. Jack Smith made it clear that there was more than enough probable cause to bring those charges, and realistically, enough evidence to win convictions, especially in the classified documents case, and likely in the broader January 6th case as well. The documents case is straightforward. Trump took classified materials, wasn't authorized to keep them, said he would return them, and didn't. That alone creates a strong black and white case. The January 6th case is more complex because it hinges on what Trump knew, when he knew it, and whether he knowingly lied. If he truly believed his own claims, that could weaken criminal intent. But there is evidence suggesting he didn't believe them, which strengthens the case against him. And there's also a simple reality check. If those hearings had gone badly for Jack Smith, pro-Trump media would be celebrating, and anti-Trump outlets wouldn't still be covering every detail a day later. The reason so much attention is still on Smith's testimony is because it seriously hurt Trump's position, including his attempt to undermine the First Amendment. And so far, the Supreme Court isn't stepping in to save him.